Disease is more often malignant and not benign, not malignant, but infective conditions. That's what we're going to discuss here. And we're going to go through the procedure of bone marrow aspiration, see its pitfalls and problems. There is no doubt in my mind that in order to do a bone marrow, I need a peripheral smear. I need a good CBC. There's no doubt in my mind that we need to do a good CBC. As Madam has clearly mentioned, it should be an automated CBC with a good, well-stained, well-made peripheral smear, which should be viewed under the microscope by a pair of trained eyes. I fully agree with the statement that a machine is a machine. It will never replace two eyes, a pair of eyes behind the microscope. A machine is given certain values, it will give an answer in that values, and how many times in malignancies you've got dashes on your differential. The machine is not able to see, not able to differentiate, and therefore it's left up to you and your trained pair of eyes to make the difference happen. So I have no doubt that a CBC is most important to start off with. Then if there is any reason for going ahead with a bone marrow examination as per the indication, and if an answer is not obtained on the peripheral smear, you would go ahead with the bone marrow. There are two reasons why you go ahead with the bone marrow. Either you are unable to make a diagnosis on the peripheral blood or CBC, or with other routine biochemistry available to you, or you want to go into details of the problem that you have diagnosed on a peripheral smear. For example, malignancies. You want to know more about that malignant disorder. So there are the two reasons why we would prefer to do a bone marrow. Let us assume a situation where you've got a patient of acute leukemia diagnosed on the peripheral smear. There are blasts. Now, if this patient is not going to go ahead with further therapy, what is the point in doing a marrow? And hence, the situation should be looked at. It's not that all leukemias on the peripheral smear should have a bone marrow. You should have a bone marrow if you want to look at it further. Or you've got a suspicion on the peripheral smear that this could be leukemia and you want to confirm that diagnosis. Therefore, your reason of doing bone marrow should be clear. After all, although it's a small procedure, it is an invasive procedure. And therefore, it has to be done when the indication is appropriate. So the peripheral smear is good, you get the diagnosis on that, nothing more is going to be done. Patient is 80-year-old, family says, kuch nahi chahiye. Patient says, no chemotherapy. What's the point of doing a bone marrow? Leave it alone. However, young patient, intention is to treat, yes, you must do further investigations. I would highly recommend doing an aspirate and biopsy when indicated together for the first time. Thereafter, on follow-up cases, if a biopsy was not necessary, you can just do the aspirates. So it is not necessary that you need to do aspirate biopsy each time. But first time I would recommend both of them to be done. Because sometimes you pick up finer nuances on a biopsy as compared to an aspirate. Sometimes the aspirate is inadequate, you don't get enough material, you can pick it up on the biopsy. And as you go along, I'll show you, there are some situations where how much biopsies helped us in order to get a diagnosis. Whenever we do a bone marrow, please assume that you have to do additional tests on the bone marrow. We can't make the patient come back for a marrow again because it's a traumatic procedure and it's expensive. It may not be horrendously expensive, but anyway it incurs a cost. So we need not do this test again. And hence, if we are suspecting a malignant disorder, we would collect in containers where we can utilize them after we've seen the slides. In the past, smears were made, a diagnosis of a suspicion of acute leukemia was made, and then a repeat marrow was advised in order to get the special stains, special investigations, immunophenotyping, etc. done. Today's world a bit unfair, I thought. So we can collect in different containers and see the smear and then advise what is to be done. Can we keep the smears for long? Obviously not. The decision has to be made in a few hours. Can we keep it in the fridge? No. Keep it at room temperature. And as soon as the decision is made as to what is on the smear, you can take the decision of going ahead with the further advanced investigations in order to clinch your diagnosis. So please remember, we should collect in special containers if you want to do special stains on it. Many times the answer may not be evident on the bone marrow aspect of biopsy. You might need the help of biochemistry along with it to get an answer. You might need biochemistry and serology to prove things. So while I'm for Philadelphia chromosome, and I'll tell you its value as we go along, I'm sure you all know it, but we'll go through it again. In the past, all were not going in for cytogenetics. But please remember, if a patient is going to undergo therapy for leukemia, the cost is huge. and therefore incurring an additional 5 or 6,000 rupees expenditure for conventional cytogenetics in addition to FISH is also worth it. Because we might pick up other chromosomal abnormalities which might point towards the prognostic features of a particular leukemia. And hence, if you are suspecting CML and you do only a FISH for T922, which is correct, if you could add on the cytogenetics, you might get additional information about chromosomal behavior and therefore the prognosis in long term. So if finances are affording it, cytogenetics might be worth doing what is called as conventional paradigm. And of course, we could do cytochemistry. In the experience that we have, cytochemistry may not be that beneficial in today's world. In fact, in Sydney, where I did my training, they had stopped doing cytochemistry. They had stopped doing special science because they had such a brilliant immunophenotyping laboratory. They could pick up anything. So I said, what about those cases of myelomonocytic leukemia, where we are not confident there is no immunophenotypic characteristic of AMML. It is AML alright on immunophenotyping, but it's not characteristic on immunophenotyping. There, using esterases, both the specific and non-specific esterases, might help us to diagnose, but it's very labor-intensive and difficult to perform. And that also has its own problem. Hence, cytochemistry as a field is slowly fading off, as immunophenotyping is getting better and we're getting the expertise. Therefore, in this talk, I will not be including cytochemistry other than making passing mention of it. The essence of today's talk is to deal with procedure. I'm told that you all do mallows. So it's not a big deal as to how it's to be done. You all do mallows, you all know how to do mallows. Let us go through certain practical problems and reporting of mallows. And then I'm going to show you some slides that we can go through together and we can help make diagnosis. Procedure-related problems of bone marrow are very, very important. In order to get a proper diagnosis, proper smear, we should have a good sample. And many times I think the pitfalls start from there itself. Poor preparation of the patient, in the sense that the patient is not mentally tuned, there is reluctance, severe anxiety, local anesthesia does not work. Many times we have to do kind of what's called a short anesthesia. So all those problems are there, we will go through it. Once we do get a sample, however, we have to interpret whatever we get and give a result. And then that has to be communicated. Communication is two-way. One is for the pathologist to pick up the phone and ask the clinician, what are the details? Why did you do a marrow? I'll tell you that's a big problem. There is a massive communication gap between clinicians and pathologists. Clinicians do the marrow and they send up the sample without any details. Pathologists constantly trip about them. And pathologists and the clinicians say, we've given the details, it's not been written on the pathologist, we can't. Both sides of the story I heard. But communication, including history taking, getting a good history, on the part of the pathologist also, finding you are issuing with. So you should also get clinical details, including history and physical findings. Very important. The other aspect of communication is to communicate with the doctor saying, look, my findings are X, Y, Z. Is that telling with your clinical picture? Is this fitting in? What additional things can you do? Because I don't know about Nashik, but in Mumbai, we have to make, for every sample additional test that we are going to do, the payments have to be made in most of the hospitals. We cannot say, okay, we'll run the test and then the payment will come through. Most of the hospitals don't allow that. So we have to communicate, look, you better tell me, I'm thinking of this, are you thinking of that? Ask the relatives to come here, make the payment, we'll get the next test done. So a lot of communication is needed. So it can become a bit complex at times. It's not as easy as having a standalone laboratory where you can run the samples and say, this is the diagnosis, please come back, make the payment for the rest. It doesn't happen in most hospitals. Then at the end of all this communication and you having seen the slide, you have to report it. Report it in a manner which makes sense to the clinician. Clinician is most often not going to read your description. Most often. He is not going to go through your numbers in detail. He is going to see what you have written at the end. If you have written something at the end. Otherwise, he is as confused as the time when he sent you the sample. But he can't make head or tail of it. So, some kind of a sense at the end of it, an answer. But like Madam has said just now, if you don't have an answer, it is not necessary for you to write. However, you can pick up a phone and communicate. These are my thoughts. I have not written it, but do you think it fits in? A lot of communication, if there is, it eliminates a large number of problems. And finally, you have to convey an answer, be it to the patient or to the clinician. Most of the times, the doctors, clinicians do not like pathologists to convey directly to the patient the result. Many reasons for that. But they would prefer that the clinician themselves has been told and the clinician will then break the news to the patient. That's what is usually the norm that is accepted. So, aspirate reporting, a lot of other things go behind the scenes. to get the report out. Let's go through some general tips. We have discussed this, we have discussed this, we have discussed this. Please remember, normal CBCs do not rule out malignancies. Just because the CBC is normal, that does not mean the patient doesn't have malignancy. You report a normal CBC, patient might have something else, like myelomas can come with normal CBCs, lymphomas can come with normal CBCs. However, malignancies, especially leukemias, can present with all funny types of cytopenias. Any kind of combination, 1 up, 1 down, 2 up, 2 down, whatever, any combinations. So sometimes you may not be able to make head or tail of it, but by looking at a smear, you might make more sense. All pancytopenias need not be leukemias. We have got aplastic anemias, we have got megaloblastic anemias, which can also present as pancytopenias. So there is no need to suggest a bone marrow for all patients who have got pancytopenia. If the peripheral smear does not warrant a bone marrow, it is not indicated. If you are seeing blasts on the peripheral smear, or what you have called, what you think are blasts, then you can give the description of the cell. If you don't want to put your neck out, stick your neck out and say leukemia. You can say suggestive of, or it is suspicious of, or something to the effect, to warn the clinician, look, there's something abnormal. The CBC numbers don't look normal, and there are some cells which look atypical to me. Suggest further investigation to be done, or repeat, like Madam said, repeat the CBC and let us see if there are any changes, or give us clinical details. In Sydney, as a laboratory registrar, and in most of the Western hospitals where you are, you have to, there is a remark column which you have to fill in. All the reports before authentication go through the registrar, all the abnormal ones. And we are supposed to see the slide, and we used to put a note, I remember this was 5 years ago, we used to put in a note saying, give us clinical details, or is there a liver and spleen, or does this patient have a nutritional problem? Something to give us a clue, and we used to withhold. We used to not allow authentication of that report till the time we get the clinical details. So, the sister or the ward nurse who is accessing the computer on the floor would get an unauthenticated report. She would see why it's unauthenticated. She would find that out and give us a call and tell us, there are the details. Then we would authenticate if it fits in. Please remember, Fab classification is on the marrow, not on peripheral smear. Many times it's asked to us that it's leukemia, which Fab type is it? Please do not comment on any Fab types. It has to be done on the marrow. And Fab anyway has pitfalls, and one of them is if it's a hypocellular marrow, it's very hard to get that 30%